Hi everyone. Let's go ahead and continue working on the next part of this activity, which is to not just write data to the CSV file, but also to read and display data from that file. So I've updated my instructions here using the same code from the previous activity. You see that my trips.csv file is still here with the data in it that we last ran. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to modify the way we use write trips. So again, write trips is writing at the way we had it. It was writing multiple lines, multiple rows of data to our CSV file. But now we want to do this after every input. Okay, and then we're going to create a new function called read trips that's going to read the data in the existing trips.csv file and store that trip list before asking for any additional inputs. So as soon as the program starts, we're going to want to get the information from read trips and display what we currently have stored in data. And that's where list trips is going to come in, which will display the data before adding any trips to the list. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we have here. Again, nothing has changed since our last video demonstration. We're still pulling in import CSV. We're setting the file name to trips.csv. And this is the function that is doing all of the writing. We made that update. So if you didn't watch the first video or you didn't finish it, we changed it at the very end from a W, which is write mode, to an A for append mode. And we are opening that file and writing our trips list to it. Then, of course, our get miles driven, get gallons used, those are for the inputs. We're not going to be making any changes there. We will make a few little changes in how the write trips is currently called. So let's go ahead and build out our functions. We've got write trips, and then we need read trips, which again, we'll go ahead and just leave that blank for right now. And I'm going to create a placeholder for list trips. Oops. List trips as well. And we're going to pass the trips list to list trips. Okay, so first let's do read trips, because this is where we're going to be getting our data. We're going to create our list. It's going to be an empty list for right now, and we're basically going to open up the file and store the data from that file into our trips list. So again, I'm going to use that with open. And remember, when we use with open, the good thing about this is that we don't have to close our file. So with open file name, and put that new line. It's so frustrating. Stop telling me what it's going to be. New line equals quotations as file, a colon. Make this a little bigger. And then I'm going to use my reader. Again, this is all coming directly from our book code, almost line for line. For row in reader, so this line is going to loop through everything that we have currently in the CSV. We're going to append that row of data to our trips list. It's going to look something like this. And then we're going to return trips. So the reason I'm not passing any arguments into trips is because we don't have any, we're going to read this file, and once we get to the end, we have created our list that has nothing, that has all the data in it. But when we're first starting with this, we have a list with nothing in it, and that's what we're doing in that first line. Okay, so that is read trips, and then we need to do the list trips. So let's think about how we're going to do this. Um, we want to make a list of the distance, the gallons, and the miles per gallon. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of put like a heading. So when we print it out, we'll see what the meaning is of this. So I'm going to put distance, and then I'm going to do a /T for tab, and then gallons /T. I'm going to tab over 2 times, and then MPG. So that is going to print out 3 headings. Now again, I'm passing the trips, which should be calculated from read trips. So again, if there's anything in this file, this will print out each row. So for I in range 0, we'll start with 0 to the length of trips. 0 to the length of trips with colon. Trip equals trips I. So this is our counter. So I is going to be our counter. We're starting at 0. So trip, again, this is going to be we're taking in that variable for the row 0, trips I, which in the first case is going to be 0. And then we're going to output it, and then we're going to go to do it again. So if there's 3 rows, we're going to go through 0, 1, and 2. And let's print this out. We're going to print string trip 0. So that's going to be the first item. Plus, let's do some tabs. And then plus string trip 1. So that's going to give us our, this should be distance, this should be gallons. And then we just have to do the same thing for our third item. We do tabs here, plus string trip item, the number 2 index. Okay, so I know it's kind of ugly looking line right there. I'll make it a little wider so you can see that. And then I'm going to put a print nothing line, and I think that is all we need to do for that particular item. All right, so now what are we going to do to make our changes to the main section? So main, we no longer need to create a placeholder list because we're already doing that when we're reading things in. So I can remove that. And I've got my, what do I have? I need to, before I do anything, I need to call read trips. Okay, so I'm going to say trips equals read trips. And again, I'm not going to pass an argument. I'm going to, let's take a look at read trips again. So read trips. Again, we're starting with an empty list and we are appending it. We're going to return that list, and that is what's happening right here. Then I'm going to call list trips because I want to output everything before I call for any inputs. And I'm going to pass it trips. And from there, let's see if I need to make any changes. No, I'm sorry, I made a little mistake here. These need to occur before my loop happens. So I'm going to take these 2 lines that I just created and I'm going to cut them and put them here. They need to happen right at the beginning of the printing, the greeting printing. So sorry for that confusion. Okay, so the main section, we're going to print this out. We're going to get our trips data, and then we're going to list the trips out. Okay, so that's where we need to go for that. Then, when we come into our while statement, then we're going to ask for the input for miles and gallons. We're going to calculate the miles per gallon, and we are going to print out our miles per gallon. All that should still be the same. We still have our list that we're creating, we're appending, and everything looks good, except we're not going to print it out this time. So instead of printing it out, we're going to get rid of the printout. We've got the appending going to trips. And now after every single one, we're going to write it. So line 89 on mine is going, remember we were waiting until the end before we would write everything. But now we want to do this on every single input. So be sure to write this row of data before accepting more data. All right, so that's what's happening here in write trips. And then we're going to list the trips. So before we ask for more, we're going to list our trips again. So I mean, lots of data printing to the screen. All right, so let's see if this works. This is kind of a lot here. I know that. And I think that looks right. Okay. All right, let's see if this works. Fingers crossed. I'm gonna pull my screen over. Okay, I have a slight error, unsupported operand type S for plus. Okay, so it looks like that one line that I told you that was pretty ugly. Line 37 I need to fix. I must have made some sort of an error here. Let's see. Give me 1 second to take a look and try and find that error. Okay, I found my problem here. So my problem here is that I have my print and I have the parentheses, the end parentheses in the wrong spot. I have a syntax error. I've got to take that off of here. So now I'm printing the string trip 0 plus the tabs, string trip 1 plus the tabs, string trip 2 plus nothing. This is where my end print. So now if I click on that, you'll find the match. Okay, so that problem should be fixed now. Clear this and start over again. Okay, so here we go. We've got our output. We're using the tabs, so everything's lining up nicely. And now we can go ahead and enter more information. So I'll put in 315. And so here we go. Miles per gallon is 20. And now we're outputting our list again. Now, I don't know that I like having those big spaces in between. I think I'm going to, you can play around with the formatting. So again, that formatting is coming from list trips. I think I'm going to get rid of that extra line and see what that looks like. Again, all right, so now we have, looks like we have multiple things in here. Looks like we have our list in here once and twice. Let me restart that one more time. All right, let's try this. 500, oops, 525. So here's my 525. Let me click more. Let's do 415 and 15, 27. No. Okay, so I don't know if my program is doing something strange here and reading in more data than it should be, but I'm going to check my files. Wow, I have a lot of data in here, 24 lines of data. So it seems like it is rewriting everything. So again, I'm going to go take a look at my code and see if I am maybe making a mistake here. So it looks like what's happening is I'm reading in that trips data, and then it is going and appending the entire thing again. So I might have a problem in my append code where I'm appending the entire list instead of the trips. So again, right here is where I'm appending this, and this might be my problem. So give me 1 second to take a look at that. Okay, so I had to do quite a bit of debugging here to get this to work. So number one, a couple things here is I only want to have one row of my list being sent. So for example, we have our calculations. So we start off with an empty list for trip. We append the miles driven, the gallons used, and the miles per gallon. So what I want to do is I want to add this particular row to trips. Now remember, trips is basically everything that is in the trips.csv. I want to add this to it, but I don't want to write the entire trips back to my trips.csv, because you can see what's happening here is, let's say I have two rows in trips.csv when I start the program. I start the program, my two rows are now currently in my trips list, and then when I go to append my third one, now I have three rows in here. So I've got three rows, and then I send trips up to write trips, and it writes all three of those rows again. So it's duplicating the first two that it automatically read in. Okay, so here's where I made some changes. Instead of sending the entire trips list to write trips, I'm only sending trip, because that is my one row of data. So let's take a look. When I call the write here, now instead of this being trips, it's just trip. It's that one row of data. I'm outputting it here just for debugging purposes. I'll leave that there to show you how it works. But the other change that I made is here I had writer.write rows. And if you're only passing it one row, write rows isn't going to work, because write rows thinks that you're sending it multiple rows of data to input. So I had to change that to write row, and again I'm specifying trip. So this is no longer trips, it is just the one row of data trip. I think that is the only change that I made in this. I don't think I changed anything else. You go back through here. So I'm doing write trips with trips. I'm still listing the trips, which has all of the items in it now. All right, so let me show you how this works. Okay, first of all, you need to start this program with a trips.csv. So let me show you. If I delete this file and I run this, it's going to give me an error because it's trying to open the file name trips.csv. So I'm going to start by just making a new file called trips.csv. If you are running this from your previous program, you already have trips.csv created, so you might not need to do that. But in the event, like me, you want to delete it and start over, you can just make a new one. Remember, there's nothing in here, it's just the actual file name. All right, so now that I've got that created, I can run the program. So I'm going to run the program, and it's not going to output anything because there's nothing in the trips.csv right now. So I'm going to do my 525. Here we go. This again is for debugging purposes because I wanted to see the row of data. And this is what happens when I call that list trips. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put some new entries in there. Let me do 250 and 10. So here now I have both of my data recorded. I'm going to click no, and then I want to run the program again and make sure that I've fixed that error. So again, when I run this program, I should just see these two rows of data. So let me clear this, run it again. There are my two rows of data that are currently sitting in trips.csv. So let me add a little bit more information, 425 and 15. I would probably add a little more spacing in here because it's a little crowded. So there's my three rows of data, and as you can see, does not appear that I am duplicating anything. Let me just exit again and double check, make sure there is only three rows of data. Sure enough. So from my perspective as the programmer, it appears to be working the way I want it to work. and I am happy with the output and the display. Again, I would probably just clean it up, maybe make it a little bit more personable, you know, a little more spacing in here. And I'll go through this just one more time. Import CSV, we specify that file name. We've got 3 functions we've created. Write trips, again, I made a change to this one by just putting trip in here instead of trips. I'm going to comment out this because that was for debugging. I really don't need it. Probably just remove it. So I am going to get that particular row of data, and after every single input I'm going to call write trips, which will add that new line to trips.csv. Read trips, again, starts by creating an empty list, and then it takes everything in. Read trips is only called that one time when we first start the program right here. When we first start the program, we call read trips, but nowhere else are we calling read trips. So that is grabbing that data, storing it to a list that has multiple lists within it, and anytime that we are adding something to our program, we're just adding it, we're appending that new record of data to the trips list. Kind of sound like a broken record here with all these trips, but hopefully you're following along a little bit with me on this one. So trips is a list of multiple rows of data, whereas trip is the single row of data that we are creating per input. Okay, so that is the new version of the miles per gallon program with persistent data storage, so that this, if we were actually using this program to record our weekly, you know, miles driven, gas used, this could be a beneficial tool for us to track what our miles per gallon is on a consistent basis. Okay, hope that was helpful. Good luck. If you run into any problems, feel free to drop me a line and I am happy to help, but hopefully this video will answer any questions that you might have working with this activity. Thank you. Have a great day. Bye.